Hey, friends, thanks so much for tuning in for another episode, another interview. And my guest today and I, we've been friends for a couple of years now, and it's been a really great privilege for me to know Andy. We met a couple of years ago at a Jackie Wu Scully method workshop, and that was hosted by Andy at his place in San Diego. And, as soon as I met you, Andy, I was like, I got to get to know this dude because he's got some great stuff happening. So, without further ado, I just want to introduce my special guest, Andy Hsieh. He's the owner of Movement Reborn in San Diego. Awesome, awesome person, trainer, idea guy, movement specialist, movement expert, and a great facility too. So, and we've been trying to get together for months to do this interview, and every time I had something come up. But today, here we are. Thanks for joining me. How you doing, man?
I'm good, brother. How are you, man? Thanks for that intro, dude.
My pleasure. It's the least I can do, man. As you know, I've told you before, and other people too. You inspire me because I really like it. Like one thing about when I was traveling so much is I would meet, some not tons, a lot of great people, but some super interesting people who make me think. You're one of those people.
Sweet. I'm glad.
And so I taught my Parkinson's workshop there last year, and then I was there this year. We were just hanging out. I had a private client I met there, and the discussions we've gotten into, whether it's at lunch or dinner or in a workshop, and the way you contribute to things just makes me like, I just told you off camera, I want to spend time in San Diego and have this dude train me because I think I'd move a lot better if he was my trainer.
It'd be fun to train you, man.
So with that said, though, thank you again. With that said, I'm just curious, like Movement Reborn is such a cool name for a place. And obviously, as I've gotten to know you, you look at movement different than a lot of people that I know of. And certainly, I'm not sure the PC thing to say here, but then the traditional movement world, who I think is still stuck generally in kind of this box. And I need to be out of the box. You're out of the box way far, and I love it. How do you see movement? Like, what is movement from Andy's perspective?
Honestly, I feel like movement, you can just say it as like freedom. It's freedom of expressing what the capabilities of your body and joint is just designed to do.
Oh, man.
And having that permission to be able to play around with it, that's what movement kind of means to me, So, yeah, like I was blessed with being born with a bunch of mobility, but I ended up losing a lot of it as I started aging and started going down that traditional realm of lifting weights, of pushing harder, gaining mass and everything.
Yeah.
And over time, the more achy and fatigued and tight and just overall just feeling like crap, like I had no idea that the body was actually designed to not have to do as much as you think it should.
Yeah,
and
right.
still be able to feel pretty damn good for the most part. So that's kind of how Movement Reborn came to be, is because long story short, I started lifting weights when I was like 19 and bulked up. I graduated high school at 112 pounds. So I was a super skinny kid, and then I bulked up to like 157. I'm like 5'5", so it's pretty heavy.
Yeah, man.
And so I realized the bigger I got, the more muscle mass I gained, the worse my energy levels were. So I was so tired, I could never sleep. Even if I slept, never felt like I got any rest. I was sore for 5 years straight. Like there wasn't one day when I wasn't achy from lifting weights and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and
right.
And ended up just getting so injured from dislocating both my shoulders, injuring my lower back, got like plantar fasciitis, knees are messed up, and that constant adrenal fatigue, neck pain. And I'm like, I'm 22 years old.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm lugging like the 60-year-old body around. I'm like, something is wrong with this. And that's when I started going down the more natural movement realm.
Yeah.
And learning like how the body should be able to move from the ground up like we did when we were babies, and like
Yes, thank
Original
you.
strength is one of those systems that truly resonated with me. And then, babies, you're just born, you learn how to move naturally. And that's how the, the word reborn came about, I'd say. Yeah, so we're just learning how to move from the ground up again, and then basically just trying to feel younger again. So basically just giving our body a rebirth to movement, which is, how I came up with that name.
That's great, man. I love the name. And did you just mention original strength?
Yep.
Yeah, that's something, that's my next dive. I'm going to dive deep into that soon because I want to know that stuff.
Yeah, it's a super simple dive, honestly. It's like one day you learn like 90% of the concepts of literally, it's super simple. And that's what I love about that system is that anybody, even general population, can apply the
Yeah.
similar principles, which is basically you lying on the ground, you move your eyes, you move your head, you do some breathing,
Mhm.
then you do some rolling, you do some rocking movements, you crawl, and then you do like cross pattern knee taps just to connect left brain, right brain.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just that simple. You already know a lot of the concepts, but absolutely, like the workshop will just give you so many different variations of what you can actually play around with and figure out like what resonates with your body at that particular point in time. And when things don't feel right, which variations can you do to make yourself feel better?
Yeah, that's really cool, man. Yeah, that's my next thing. I have to do that because especially you, if you say it, I know it has to be good. But I think Gabriel, Jackie, a bunch of people we know in common are familiar with that. And of course, some of that comes through in other presentations like Perry, right? You've
Yep,
hosted Perry there
absolutely.
probably more than once, and he's got the primal movement thing, which again we're talking about when you're born. You're not doing too much, but you develop, and it's something that we don't do anymore. I mean, we do it in our workouts all the time. You have Parkinson's, MS, it doesn't matter. You're going to get on the floor, and you're going to roll. You're going to move your head. Your eyes are going to track. Your head's going to turn. You're going to crawl. Just like the primal development patterns. And I think that's helped me a lot for sure. But I need to do more. So
Yeah.
one of the reasons I need to dive into this. But
Uh-huh.
so tell me, I'm just curious. Like, let's say let's say I have no knowledge of movement. I'm your typical 58-year-old guy, 30 pounds overweight, but not anymore. Well, let's say I was. I come to you. You're going to be my trainer. Where do we start? What do you do? What do you do?
Okay, that's a very broad question, but hell
Yeah, I
yeah,
know.
let's go with it. So essentially, like all the clients I get are actually very similar to you. They come in broken. They've been through traditional realms of going to a bunch of physical therapists, getting treatments, getting massage, stretching, doing all of those stuff, but there's still something missing, and they still feel like something's not connecting right. So initially, like if I meet up with you, I'd be like, okay, let's actually sit down for like 30 minutes and chat about everything
Great,
that's
man.
going wrong. So whether it's just normal physical pain wise, or is it emotional stuff? Is it, physiological issues, like you got gut issues? Like we talk about as much of those factors as possible. So I have certain clues of where we can actually start. So I have a pretty wide background in knowing the general outlook of how the gut should be functioning, how the immune system and all of that stuff should be working as a
I love it.
unit. I give very, very basic guidelines on that, but if it's something beyond my realm, I'd refer you to somebody else so that they can take care of, the gut, taking other blood work and stuff if you possibly need it to rebalance certain things.
Yeah, sure.
And for me, my main specialty is reconnecting the brain and the body to start speaking to each other again. So that's what I like to play around with. So after we've addressed the most of those things, and if I feel like, you know what, gut is probably your biggest thing, I give you a referral for that, and then we can start with the movements and the lymphatic stuff that can help assist
Yeah,
in what we're
yeah.
gonna do. So that's how it would pretty start. So I mentioned lymphatic because I know you need that for sure. So
Oh, I need it. Well, I
yeah,
actually I bought Perry's online course and
awesome.
gone through that a couple times now, and that's actually helping a lot. But I need to know more and do more.
Yeah,
But I'm
absolutely.
proud to say that ever since this, not to get off topic, this interview is about you, not me. But I will say, in Singapore, when the whole blood clot issue, I'm down 18 pounds since then. I'm feeling lean and mean and
Awesome,
actually
man.
stronger than I've ever felt. Like I
Sweet.
feel I'm moving much, much better now. And how I'm wanting to, my intention with this, just stating this message is that it ties in with what I'm thinking about. I'm guessing you do.
Hmm.
Is I started a couple years ago, only like 2 years ago, uh, but have uh, dove deep into looking at the body as a whole.
Hmm.
And you're looking at it, it sounds like you're taking a holistic approach because
Yep.
there's, I mean, who in the training world teaches about gut stuff? I don't know. Maybe they do. I don't know. But I don't
Yeah.
know if the traditional personal training certifications teach anything about that. And if they do, I don't believe I've ever heard of anything as advanced as what I know you know, or what, functional medicine teaches with Stu and Perry and them, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that stuff that can change everything about how you move.
For sure. That's a huge rabbit hole. Like I try to know as much about it as I can, but I don't claim like I'm a specialist at any of that stuff, which
Sure.
is why I outsource. And I know where my limitations are, but where I have that because I know the general outlook of all of these things, I have that intuition to pinpoint like you probably need this the most. So go there and then we'll treat the movement and stuff like that as we go. So that would be the next thing is after we address the biggest things that could possibly help, then we'll start with the movement assessments just to see like, hey, how your ankles moving, how your hips moving, how the shoulder is working and all of that stuff. And based on the assessments that we do, I can start seeing where the blind spots of your movements are at. So
That's
many
cool.
times, like we think that we are doing the right stuff or we just feel tight, but I'm like, okay, tight from where? You know, like if you're doing a squat, it's like,
Right.
okay, my back or my hips feel tight. You're like, okay, but it could be an ankle thing, could be a hip thing, it could be a shoulder thing that's affecting your hips to feel tight. So for me, like I play around with all of those. Then after I see probably where the biggest blind spots are, that's where I start with the neurokinetic therapy side of things. So I pop you on a massage table, then I basically just try to reactivate as many of the biggest muscle groups I can. So my big thing is glutes, core, and lats. If we can get those three big muscles online and the brain can
Yeah.
actually find them and how to utilize them, the chances of those smaller muscles coming back online is a lot higher. So NKT, neurokinetic therapy in general, of how I personally like to use it, everybody's got their own approach, but I physically utilize it for movement optimization standpoint.
Hmm.
So like if you're doing a squat or you're doing a lunge and the glutes can't fire, I'm like, okay, let's actually see what is switching off that glute. And it's basically a muscle testing system where I can
Right.
test if a muscle is underactive versus a muscle that's overactive. They are typically paired. So like, for example, like an overactive calf could be shutting down that glute. So if I found that through the muscle testing, I will release the calf and then all of a sudden, like it can teach you how to fire that glute and your brain can find it immediately. So there's a lot
Absolutely.
of
Yeah. Yeah.
so yeah, and then once those big muscles are on, like I don't even cue you. Like we just do the movements again just to see if anything feels different. And say 85, 90% of the time it feels different. And if it does and it's more stable, pain is
Yeah.
less, or you just feel like something is working better, then we harness the nervous system resets, which is where original strength comes in. So
Okay.
NKT helps me release the tight overactive muscles to bring underactive muscles online, then resetting the nervous system to tell the entire body how to talk to each other. So rolling patterns, crawling patterns, and all of that stuff. Just reconnect the left brain, right brain to start working again. And I personally love rolling patterns because the spinal column, the brain links straight down the spinal column through each vertebra, and that's where all the nerves dissipate to the peripherals of the body. So
Yeah.
if something
Exactly.
is jammed within the mid part of the back and the spine just has some nerves that just don't have any restriction. It's like a bottleneck effect that's preventing flow
Exactly.
to the rest of the body. So when we learn to roll, when we learn to rock and teach the spine how to be in neutral and actually rotate in a very passive, non-threatening standpoint, the
Hmm.
brain starts connecting the dots together and it's like, oh, gosh, this actually feels pretty good. Then the body feels more looser and stable. So it drops the body from sympathetic to a parasympathetic state. That's where we learn. That's where we can actually start amping it back up again so that actually start working out and activating the muscles that we're supposed to activate. But most of the times we're already just stuck in the sympathetic state. We think that we're chilling, but passively we actually are up here. We don't even know where chill is because we've never truly experienced it. But then once you do all of these nervous system resets, it drops it back down. So your body's like, okay, now I can amp it back up with the activations and then the movement and progression. So that's the ramp protocol I developed. So it's release, reset, activate, movement, and progressions. So
I love it, man.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you mentioned NKT, because if you didn't, I was going to ask you about it. I knew that you had done some NKT. They have, I don't know how many levels they have, but that's another thing I need to do ASAP. Because I know that's, you know, you and when I saw you a couple different times, we were hanging out and you were just doing these things. And, you know, actually it's so simple, yet so effective.
Yep.
This is mind-boggling. Rather than going through, you know, I don't ever mean to talk down to any particular entity, let's say, or training, but rather than going through 30 minutes of corrective exercise traditional way with foam rolling on all that, you can get a reset in like a minute, or, you know.
Yeah. Sometimes it's just so fast. Like if you truly have the background and that experience to just start seeing where the blind spots are, you just pinpoint it so fast. And like it took me a long time to develop that eye to be able to see these dysfunctions and stuff, but I paid so much attention to it because my body was just so wrecked that, and no one could help me out. Like I, you know, saw all these specialists from all over the world, and all of them are like, yeah, just do more or stop doing things. And those are either the two things. I'm like, isn't there somewhere in between that we can kind of like bridge the gap of doing more or less, you know? And that's where I feel like balance is. But most people just don't know how to find that line for each individual. And that's what I started dedicating my time to, is like, hey, when is too much for this one specific person, and when is too little, you know, like we can definitely play around with that a bit more.
I love that. That's the stuff, like, you know, I'm going off track just a little bit, but there's this graph or this representation I saw one time. It's a circle. And the circle the guy drew on the board was the circle of know, K-N-O-W. It's all the things that you could possibly know in the universe.
Yep.
And so if you take a small sliver out of it, there's stuff you know. Like I know that I know how to do a brake job on my car. I'm like a car guy, and for some reason that's kind of like therapy to me, right?
For sure.
I know that I know how to do a lot of stuff with people, Parkinson's, whatever. Then there's the stuff you don't know. Like I know that I don't know how to be a doctor in an emergency room like my son is in Atlanta, right? He's pulling bullets out of people and sewing them up, and I know I don't know. Then there's the stuff you don't know. Yep. That's the shit. It's my podcast. I can say what I want. So that's the shit. That is so cool because, like with you, you're one of that special group of people that has enlightened me into the world of learning stuff I didn't know.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that. First of all, I appreciate it a lot because that taps into like that can change everything. Like, a couple of things you showed me when I was with you, like, man, I didn't know that, and this is like the coolest stuff in the world, so I need to know how to know it and do it.
Yeah,
I love that. You know, the other thing too is like with what you're saying, I mean, you're really taking what appears to be this holistic approach to the body, and I said it again before, but I'll say it again, is I think this is so important in our industry, to look at things as a whole. If you like you say, you have to know your limitations and refer out when necessary. But I say to people, go get educated. You know,
100%. Yeah.
Go take the original strength. Go take Perry's course. You've got to come up with a course, brother.
I did. I taught it.
Wait a minute. What is it? I need to take it.
It's called Rethinking Movement. I'm actually going to Flagstaff next weekend to teach my second teach it again.
Whoa.
So, you know Jesse Prescott?
I know the name.
Yeah. So my buddy Jesse Prescott and I were just like, one day we're like, you know what, dude? Let's just put this together. And then he flew here. in one weekend, and we just slapped it all together. And I taught it in May 25th on my sister's birthday this year. Yeah, at my facility, just to like ramp it up and see how things go.
Oh,
Went
that's cool,
pretty
man.
well. So
Oh,
basically,
I'm
the
so
stuff that I
glad.
was telling you, yeah, of the release, reset, activate, movement, and progressions, we talked about that. So basically, it's a trainer's course. So yeah, to
Well,
just teach the fundamentals of where those things are, yeah, of what to look for, of how to assess, of what good quality movement actually is, and how do we actually build the eye to be able to do these things. So yeah, that's my
that's
course.
great, man. Now, you going to be traveling and teaching that at all, or
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, next week is flying to Flagstaff to teach it.
okay?
That's where Jesse's facility is, so we're trying to teach it there as well. But yeah, obviously, you know how workshops are. It's very, very hard to get attendees, especially when you're just starting from scratch and not many people
Yeah,
know about you.
exactly.
Yeah, so next year, we're planning to find some places in New York to try and launch it.
Oh
So
yeah, I'll help you however I can on that
oh,
one.
appreciate it, man. Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, so we'll definitely start doing that. And then, secret note, I'm launching my online program called Movement Unwound in the next
Awesome.
2-3
I was
weeks.
going to ask you about
Uh,
online too, because I would sign up for that right away.
yeah, so it's like half of the stuff is already up on my Vimeo on demand account. So basically, you just have a Vimeo account, you can buy that, and it's a whole video series of
Great.
teaching you to build the introspectiveness of what your body is actually trying to tell you to do. So
Man,
many of the times, like if you look at movement wise, we're just so stuck in that linear thing. Okay, you got to squat, you got to push, pull, squat, hinge, rotate, anti-rotate. I'm like, all of these movements are great, and that's the fundamentals of what I teach. But after you know the fundamentals, I always challenge people to unlearn everything that they learned,
mhm.
because you start realizing that over time, being stuck in the structure of these 6 fundamental movements,
Yeah,
obviously there's thousands of variations of each, but you're still stuck in a system. And our bodies don't work in systems, they work with intuition, they work with feel. And many of the times we try to use programs to tell us how we're feeling, but that's using external factors to coach internal cueing
yeah.
or internal feeling, which doesn't necessarily work. So I'm trying to approach it from the internal to external concept. So it's basically the first like 8 to 10 videos is teaching you concepts. So it's got nothing to do with, oh, here's an exercise, do this. It's no, here's your toe. This is what the toes are designed to do. It should be flexing, it should be rotating. Can you curl it? Can you not? If not, you probably need to do this a little bit more. If yes, you're totally fine. And it's just exposing what, yeah, toes, ankles, knees, hips, lumbar spine, thoracic spine, shoulders, wrists, fingers, neck, like the whole body as one unit. So it's
Yeah.
just teaching you concepts of those. And then afterwards, it's teaching you how to put it all together in the way that naturally resonates with you. And then after that, then it's going to be follow along programs that you can start like, yeah, watching and stuff like that, and then play around with.
I love that, man. I love that.
I got a jet flying over right now, so it's a little
That's
bit.
okay. Yeah, so something as simple as the toe, right? It
Yeah.
it sounds like a little tiny thing, but it's a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
I taught for a few years for Dr. Emily Splickle at the Barefoot Training Specialist Level 1 and Level 2 course. And Perry talks about this too, and you talk about it, and it's so important. It's like if you take something like the big toe and you can't get over it, or Perry says big toe mojo. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, if you can't get over the big toe, all kinds of things can happen that
Mm-hmm.
are bad, right?
Yeah.
Because you have a lack of first-rate mobility, big toe mojo.
Mm-hmm.
And when we look at that, and then we look at the assessments that a lot of these certifying agencies put out there,
Mm-hmm.
hardly anyone goes below the ankle.
Yep.
And there's so much happening below the ankle that is
Yep.
the foundation of movement.
Mm-hmm.
That's the foundation. We stand on our feet.
Mm-hmm.
We walk, most of us, and everything needs to work right down there. For everything else, kinetic chain up,
Mm-hmm.
following up.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's all this stuff makes me excited.
For sure. Yeah. And the thing is, like, it's not just about how much can the toe move. It's how do you feel about that toe moving? So
Exactly. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
so many of the times we just miss that communication of what the toe or the foot or any part of the body is trying to tell you. And the goal is so many times people are like, oh yeah, my toe doesn't move. That's causing all of this stuff. No, not necessarily. It's maybe because you're not paying attention to that toe that's causing all of those issues. So you
Yeah.
don't have to have all that mobility. You don't have to have perfect dorsiflexion or any of these things. You can just build that awareness to the mobility that you currently have. And many of the times that will be just enough to help you feel better and feel a different sensation up the body or connect to the core a little bit better. Because we know that there's
Yeah.
fascial lines connecting from the bottom of the foot, from plantar fascia and all the toes to the deep core muscles. But many of the times we think we need the mobility there. Nope, you just need the intuition to make sure that you're paying attention to using that toe a little bit more with the current range that you have to build
Yeah.
that sensation back to the core. And that's the missing piece that I always try to express to people. It's like, you don't need all the ranges. Everybody is, we're designed to be in balance. We're designed to have compensations. But if these compensations are causing pain and stiffness and tightness, and that's something that you don't want, pay attention to it so that you can build your way or you can move your way out of it. But many of the times we just don't have that awareness that something is wrong, and we find these, structural abnormalities, and we're like, oh no, I'm broken, I'm imbalanced, I have these compensations, like I'm messed up. I'm like, no, 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 you're a human being. We have imbalances. Let's just learn to play, experiment, and explore what the body is capable of with the current limitations that you have. And then over time, like, you will naturally just start moving out of those limitations because you're allowing your body and mind to do so.
I love that, man. The whole awareness factor is so
Mm-hmm.
important. Hardly anyone talks about that.
Yeah, and that's the you don't know that you don't know thing, right? We think we're aware, but we're truly not until like someone just points a flashlight at it. It's like, trying to shoot something in the dark. You can't see it until someone puts light on it. You'd be like, oh, that's my target. Now I can slowly
Right.
start aiming. But most of the times we're just blindly just trying to throw everything everywhere in the dark. And we're like, no, no, no. Like, shine one thing over there, but even if there's light on there, you still have to work to be able to throw that dart at the target.
Mhm.
It's not like, oh, you see it and all of a sudden it works. You see it, now you still have to work to get that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's interesting. This is the part where I could get in trouble with some people, but it's okay. Because I never mean to disrespect anyone or talk down to them, but I have to tell you that before I met you, I made a few trips to Europe.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, one of the first time I was teaching for Dr. Emily, I was filling in for her. She was double booked. So I went over to, oh, you're going to host this guy too, Dan Edwards.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
He's
Mm-hmm.
coming in
November.
October, right?
Yeah, November
Uh,
3rd and 4th. Yeah.
okay, cool, man. Man, I got to try to get out there.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm glad we talked about it. I'm glad I thought of it.
Yeah.
So I taught at his facility. So here's the thing that's really interesting is like in Europe, and I say this, and I'm going to use this as a platform because I can to ask trainers to really think about the things that Andy is saying and some of the other circle of people we hang out with, because I look at you as the highest caliber of having the knowledge of really knowing how to help people, but that's very rare in the United States. Like, we don't see that so much here. So going back to Europe, the first time I went, I was teaching the barefoot training specialist thing for Dr. Emily, and I was a speaker at the rendezvous event, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, whoa, man. I got to tell you, the personal trainer standards in Europe
Mm-hmm.
are way higher than they are here.
Oh, for sure.
You spend a lot more money. You don't spend $300. You spend like $4,000.
I spent a year learning it. The
And
system
to
that I
spend,
learned.
yeah, it's a year internship. You can't get one-on-one with anyone for at
Mm-hmm.
least a year after you pass the test.
Yep.
So I'm in there and I'm teaching, and actually before I started teaching, I'm talking with people, trying to act cool, because like I had my niche. I had the barefoot thing, and I've been there back there with the Parkinson's thing a few times. But if it weren't for those niches, I don't know what I would have done, because they knew way more than me. I should have been the student. And I was, because every time I teach, I'm a student.
That's what I love about you, man. It's awesome. You know
Ah,
what you don't know, you know, and when someone teaches you, you're humbled by it and you fit that into your teaching, which is perfect.
I'll
People
steal
need
from
an
all of you.
environment to be able to learn. Yeah.
I'll take all your shit and teach it. No, I mean, I don't steal, but I will always give credit where it's due and try to refer to, the people who've helped me so much to learn.
Mhm.
So when I go to Europe and, whether it's France or Italy or Ireland but especially England, I don't know what it is about England. They have a high density of some great trainers, movement people, not even trainers, they're movement
Mhm.
people.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
they move well and they teach it well and they train it well. I come to the States and I'm sorry, maybe it's why my workshops don't fill up in the States is because I say these kind of things, but they're stuck in the typical trainer mindset, and they've got literally Perry and I were at dinner one night in Denver, and we were like going through Googling, and we came up with I think it was over 40 before we even stopped
Hmm.
personal training certifications you can get,
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
and
Uh-huh.
there might be that many that are halfway decent, five
Hmm.
maybe, and
Yeah.
even they don't talk about what we're talking about. A lot of it
Yeah. The problem is like all of it
being right,
is
yeah, yeah.
industry standard, you know, like, and I totally get it, but conspiracy wise, honestly, most of it is just about money, you know, and to truly make the industry in the US a little bit better is to make what they're doing in Europe like year-long certifications that it's actually virtually like a college degree. So mine is actually from Europe, my personal training diploma. It's actually a
Well, that
diploma
explains a
in
lot.
personal training. So none of that continuing education bullshit to make you have to pay more to keep your certification. Like I trained a whole year. I needed 500 hours of clinical practice and bring my own clients in and have the instructor grade me on how I was training until I could actually get my hours. And even after that, like I graduated and I still don't know shit, you know, which is why I yeah, learning and yeah, like doing continuing education stuff because I realized like when I was traveling all over the world and instructing people, giving most motivational seminars and stuff, nobody knows anything about movement, and it really like just blew my mind. I thought I'm like, okay, this is how we squat, and everybody would know how to do a squat. But 99% of the people have no clue how to actually just drop their butt down to their heels. And you're like, what is going on over here, you know, like, but
Yeah.
that's just the world that we live in, and we need high caliber coaches to be able to find these tiny little nuances that we can slowly start building a framework that they can actually start progressing in a more safer fashion instead of just doing the whole sexy thing, burn fat, gain muscle and stuff. That's just the way that we're promoting personal trainers right now. And over time, it's people like you and I who see more of the real world scenarios that is going to truly start rebranding the personal training and fitness industry to a more holistic manner, or
Yeah.
at least having a balance between the two. At least like 50-50. The people who choose the holistic side can go here because there's a lot of high end practitioners that can do that. And then the other people who just want to focus on the fitness side, that's totally fine. But the prerequisites of the fitness side should be a little bit higher, and the prerequisites of the holistic side should be even higher than that because it should be tiered, if that makes sense, right?
Oh, totally. Yeah. I mean, I, there's the pros and cons. So
Mhm.
I am actually writing this book. I'm going to be done it soon. But in the
Mhm.
book, I talk about how I don't want to piss anyone off. I don't want to disrespect anybody. But the fact remains that today's Friday. We're doing
Mhm.
this interview on a Friday, so you could theoretically you could be a couch potato today and have no movement knowledge, no biomechanic knowledge,
Mhm.
nothing. And you could go to, and I'm going to name some names. I'm sorry because I'll come up with the good stuff in a minute. You can go to CrossFit, you can go to Beachbody, you can go to P90X, you can go to
Mhm.
the $89 4-hour certification and take it
Mhm.
tomorrow morning online and never touch a person, never
Mhm.
have any kind of experience training anybody. And Monday morning you can go and load dysfunction to the max and hurt people.
Yep, and
So,
charge $100 an
oh
hour.
yeah, and
Yep.
you get paid well, and you really didn't have to invest much to start your business. You really don't know anything,
Mhm.
and this is one of the problems I have with the industry here in the States is that's how it is. I mean, what I'll say is that there are some really good CrossFit coaches. Rick Daigle, Dr. Rick Daigle, who's a friend of Perry's and a bunch of us. Do you know Rick Daigle from
No.
Medical Minds in Motion?
Got it. Yeah, it sounds familiar.
Yeah, he's up in like Maine, like really close to Quebec in Canada. Now there's a CrossFit coach who's a total badass. I mean, the guy
Mhm.
knows his stuff.
Yeah.
He knows. So yeah, you can be also. Andy can go. You can go do a CrossFit thing, and you'll do it right because you're not going to let people get injured on Monday morning if you do CrossFit this weekend. But you can take, the guy across the street laying on his couch, and he can do it too and hurt people. I mean,
Hmm.
so that's the bad part of it, in my opinion. There is probably a good part is that stuff has helped to get people moving more. Like CrossFit's really gotten a lot of people moving.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there's a higher injury rate because of couch potato to coach thing. But so Beachbody and all that. So I suppose maybe there's more good than bad, but I still want to see a different set of standards here. And I don't want to see us looking at only the muscles and that's all. Because we have
Yeah, for
bones and
sure.
we have nervous system, we have guts, we have brains. Brain
Yep.
is important, right?
Yep.
There, I
The
went
thing is
off. I
that,
did it. Okay, I'm done.
yeah, no, there's a time and place for all of it.
Yeah,
Like
there
many of
is.
the
There
people
is.
who do the beach body and the CrossFits and stuff like that are totally fine. Yeah,
Yeah,
they still feel a little bit stiff and achy and stuff like that, but they still get by. And I'd say
yeah.
that's a good 50 to 70% of the people who do that are okay. But the
Exactly. Yeah.
30, 40% of those
I'm going
people
to interrupt for one second
don't
because I
do it.
do want to
Yep.
clarify that, like I
Mhm.
said, that
Yeah.
there's probably been more good than bad with this because
Yep.
it got a lot of people moving, and that's good,
Mhm.
especially
Yeah.
for the USA, right?
Yep.
North America. Oh, go
Yep.
ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, for sure. And like I said, there's no poor systems. Like CrossFit is a totally fine system as its own entity. There's just poor coaches and poor education along with that. And
Yeah.
the thing is, like, too many people jump in too fast, too soon without telling them that there might be consequences. And that is something that they should truly try and mention more often so that they weed out the people who aren't ready for it. And
Yeah.
that's the issue is that many of the times it's all about this, right? We go for the money first and we take on all the clients as long as they sign a waiver, they're okay. Instead of saying, you know what, this program might not actually be good for you. I
Yeah.
know a few other places around the area that might help. For some
Yeah.
clients, like the people who don't want the pain management and mobility side, I get thousands of clicks on my website, but only like 10 or 20 of them actually like book in a 90-minute free consultation with me for me to help them out
Yeah.
because I've branded myself so particularly that people who don't want my services don't carry on with it, or they don't even go past the first page on my website because it's got nothing to do with them. And that's
Sure.
totally fine. Like, we just need to make sure that we choose the people that resonate with us to work on it. And it saves the practitioners a lot of energy
Yeah.
and it saves us a lot of mental stress of like, God damn it, I wish I could do this more. I'm like, no, 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 you don't. Like, you do what you're doing. And over time, as long as your brand is growing, the industry will start changing. Like complaining about how all of these things are bad, in my opinion, it's just making things worse because we're just creating more and more enemies instead of saying, no, 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 your system is great. It's just not great for everybody. And
Yeah.
that's
That's a good way to put it. That's nicer
humbling.
than I say it. You're a nice guy, man. But I try to say I don't want to disrespect, and I probably am emanating some of that. The way you just stated, that's actually beautiful. I think that's really good.
I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
that's a good
Yeah.
way to put it.
Yeah. And I feel like that's something that all of us could benefit from. It's just being
Yeah,
more humble about the approach to being like, hey, is something good or bad? Everything is good and everything is bad. I've injured people before, multiple times. And that's why I learned, I'm like, fuck, I should probably not do that. And that's how we learn. As long as you're truly taking those lessons and making it something as a learning experience so that you can keep progressing and make sure that the next person you help does not hurt. So
yeah,
it's only because I've injured quite a few people that I was like, that is where my limitations are. I should probably learn more about that so that I don't hurt more people as they come in. And now it's like I don't injure anybody. It's just yeah, when they walk in, I make sure that hey, they're feeling better when they walk out. And if that's the main model for the industry standard, I'm happy with that. And hopefully like that resonates with some other people. Is just as long as they feel better than they did when they walk out, we're doing our jobs okay.
I like that. I like that. So I want to ask you a couple more questions.
Yeah,
I'm
for sure.
curious. By the way, Andy and I didn't talk anything about what I'm going to ask him before this. I just said, let's talk about Andy's
I
perspective
love
of
winging it.
movement. But this question just came up right now in my head. Let's see. When you talk about the brain and the body communicating together and trying to improve upon that,
Yes.
do you mind giving an example or two or three of like how you go about that? What's a strategy you use?
For sure. Yeah, this is the thing that really like drove me nuts when I first started training is that like we know when we do a squat or a lunge and stuff, the glutes should be firing, you know, and all of that stuff. And the knee shouldn't hurt if you're doing it correctly. And most of the clients that come to me have had knee pain or back pain or something, and then put them in a squat, and they're like, "Oh yeah." I asked them like, "Where do you feel it?" And they're like, "I feel it in my knees." I'm like, "Okay." Keep doing adjusting all of that type of stuff until the squat actually looks pretty decent. Ask them again, it's like, "Where do you feel that?" They're like, "I still feel it in my knee." I'm like, "What the hell?" Come fast forward a few years, train a couple of pro athletes, same thing. Athletes should have all the muscles on, you know, like they should just work on command. And like I get them into the perfect athletic stance. Like my eyes are pretty damn good at seeing what biomechanics should be doing. And in that position, the glute should be firing. And under an EEG and everything, it will be like you'll see it, like the glutes have to fire. But there's a difference when the person can't feel it. So their brain can find that muscle. So when I put them in that position and they're like, I still can't feel my glute, my back hurts, my knee hurts, or like I feel something in my hip, I was like, what the hell is going on here? So that like was that main question that was like bugging the crap out of me. Is like we know what movement should be, what movement should look good and what movement should feel good, but when you're putting it in that position and it still doesn't feel right, that was the puzzle that was missing. And enter the combination of original strength and neurokinetic therapy, like releases and resets immediately just gets that thing fired up. So basically, in my opinion, is well, not just my opinion, but the philosophy behind neurokinetic therapy is that muscles should be able to turn on command, and they should be able to turn off on command. It's like if you hit a light switch, you should just see the switch turn on immediately. And if you hit the off switch, you should turn off. Issues happen if it's on and it can't turn off, or if it's off and it can't turn on, right? So yeah, so the main thing is like if I'm putting them in that lunge position and they can't feel their glute, I'm like, okay, so the glute is probably off because the brain can't find it. Pop them on the table. I test the glute. Does it work? Nope, it won't because the brain can't find it, and it's just a weak muscle that you can just pull their leg straight up and like they can't feel it. So based on how they were working in that lunge, I can palpate specific areas that's possibly connected to that glute. So it's almost like, you know, you have a light switch and you don't know which part of the wire is broken. You're just going in the dark and you're kind of taking this a dummy wire to like place along a spot to see like, oh, when I connect these two, the light shines. Okay, this is the spot that's actually probably got an issue. We call it a TL. It's a therapy localization. I literally just put my hand on like a calf or like another muscle, like an adductor or like the VMO or any part of the body, really. If it's connected, the glute fires.
It'll turn on.
Yeah, it turns on. And the strength, you can literally feel it, and the client feels it too. That's what's super cool.
Like there's a blockage or there's a disconnect.
Yes, it's just like, yeah, it's like the kink in the wire or the wire is broken or something like that. So the current won't run through because something else is pulling too hard or it's just not connected. So what we do with NKT is we test which one is actually overactive or underactive, and then we release the overactive muscle. So in this case, for example, the calf is overworking for the glute. You release the calf muscles. 95% of the time, people have an overactive calf. So just in general, if you can't feel your glutes, foam roll your calf and then see what happens and then retest it. That's just, in my experience, what I typically see. But immediately after you do the release and activations, you pop them into that same lunge, and 90% of the time they're like, something feels different without any cueing or anything. They just feel that muscle and it just feels more solid because the glutes are doing the job that it's supposed to do at a passive level. So that's
Yeah, once you get to feel that, then you know what it feels like, so you can
Mhm.
recreate
Yes.
and do
Yeah.
it again and again and again. Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, like, there's no such thing as wrong movements or wrong corrective exercise or anything like that. There's just movements that your brain can't find yet. So what I try to do is reactivate as much of it as I can by utilizing NKT, but you don't need NKT to do that. Many of the times, just do original strength stuff, rolling on the floor, doing these primal movement stuff, breathing, then your body just drops into parasympathetic, and the main muscles need to do that need to fire is back online. Go
Yeah.
back into that squat and retest it. So the test retest approach is huge in all of this, and it's all in essence, it's still an educated guess, but you just start guessing better and better every single time that you do these certain things, and you just have to figure out what works for you. So NKT is a tool that I use, but you don't have to utilize it if you don't want to, because it is a very, 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 very big rabbit hole that you go down this
Yeah.
route. And many of the
That's
times,
cool though.
it is really, really fun to play around with. But many of the times, just simple breathing techniques, simple rolling patterns and stuff like can start building that intuition for the muscles to start firing. And then go back to that same movement that you're struggling with before. And you're like, if it feels
Yeah.
better, it means what worked. If it didn't feel any different or got worse, it means your nervous system said no and it didn't like it. So probably don't do that yet because your brain and your body wasn't ready for that yet.
It's interesting. You just came up in my mind last fall, probably October or so. I had the pleasure of interviewing Thomas Myers,
Nice.
Games.
Yeah.
He was really fun too. He's so funny, really dry sense of humor. It was so much fun. But this whole thing is a learning curve for all of us, I guess. I mean, for me, it's definitely a big learning curve. I love following your work and what you're doing. You're ahead of the pack, but what's happening is we're learning how we move because we're not moving as well as we used to move because our lives are different now. And like Tom talks about how 10,000 years ago, before 10,000 years ago, we were hunter-gatherer, cavemen, whatever, I don't know. Then he talks about, I think he said around 10,000 years ago, the idea of farming came into play, right? So you're farming. Now that went from a hunter-gatherer type of movement to a different type of movement, farming, because you're still active, but you're farming. So your body's moving in a completely different way. Then like fast forward like 9,900 years to 18 something when the industrial age comes in, and all of a sudden we got like assembly lines and we're just doing this and we're not really even moving it, and now we have desk jobs. So actually somewhere in there in that 150-year period, the gym came to be. And personal training came to be because nobody had coaches up until I don't know when. It's pretty big right now, right? But I don't know. I don't even think when I was a kid, like 50 years ago, I don't know if anyone go into a gym. There were hardly any gyms around. So it's kind of like we've taken how society has moved us into the lifestyles we have because of the types of jobs that are out there now because of technology and all the other stuff. We had to create gyms so that we could move better, but a lot of them got screwed up. So they need people like you to get it straight.
For sure.
To get back to what we did when we were hunter-gatherers, because it's all coming like full circle where we're starting to maybe understand what happened 10,000 years ago, That's how people moved. How they felt was they just moved accordingly. They just didn't know that they knew it.
And the thing is,
they didn't know it.
in my opinion, like back in the hunter-gatherer days, there was no information. Everything was pure instinct, just like animals, stuff like that. We were way more animalistic then, which is totally fine. But the thing is, the brain just doesn't it's designed to develop. We're such unique creatures, so you can't compare ourselves. Well, I personally believe we can't compare ourselves back to the hunter-gathering days, but we can start utilizing the similar strategies. And the biggest difference is that hunter-gatherers, like, they have their fight or flight system.
Yes, exactly, totally.
Like when it's on, they jump straight into sympathetic. They can hunt. They can do all of that stuff. Or when something's attacking them, they can go full out avoid the thing or kill the thing, and then come back immediately within 10, 20 minutes back into parasympathetic. That's
Exactly.
why it can still keep moving and developing and all of that type of stuff. Animals are exactly the same. If you look at lions or like a deer, you know, like when you go deer hunting or when a lion is about to hunt an animal, like immediately the deer goes, what's going on? I sense something's wrong. Immediately sympathetic, like, and all of a sudden something happens, bolt, run, 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 run. As soon as they avoided the thing and they know that it's no longer a threat, boom, drops into
Yes.
parasympathetic.
Yeah.
Problem with industrial age and all of that stuff, with all the technology, we have too much input. There's so much stuff that's constantly just driving our sympathetic state higher and higher and higher. And we think when we do a couple of breathing stuff, we're dropping it into parasympathetic. We're dropping from here to here.
Yeah.
Like, and then we operate up here and then dropping it back down to here, you know, like, so the gap is just way too much and we don't even know where chill is until we truly go down that rabbit hole of like, there is all the way down here that we can actually get to. And the more you can teach your body how to be able to drop further and further into a deeper parasympathetic state, that's where we can heal, regenerate, and start moving a little bit better. And that's where the intuition and the self-care and truly trying to take the introspective route to feel what your body is feeling makes such a big difference. So for me, I was so jacked up until actually, even when I opened the gym, hosting the workshop for Jackie and stuff, I was still up here this whole time.
Yeah.
My adrenal system was shut. Like I still had to drink like 3-4 cups of coffee a day just to get by.
Yeah.
And I was like, something is wrong. Until I met Dr. Stu Gillespie and Perry Nicholson, at the functional health systems workshop, blew my mind of like how our immune systems and how, you know, viral infections and all that stuff can affect how our bodies actually heal. So I started going down that rabbit hole of finding the right supplements and the right diet that worked for me. So like intermittent fasting combined with keto works specifically for my immune system, and then taking a couple of natural supplements, only like 4 or 5 things in total, like just help my body to start recovering. And now stacking that on top of good breathing techniques, and I'm reintroducing Qigong techniques and Tai Chi and those martial art things that you just feel the flow and actually experiment with what your body is actually supposed to do.
Yeah.
And now like I feel freaking amazing like 95% of the time. Like I didn't even know like how clear my brain could be, because like having brain fog my entire life, like it was just the norm. I didn't even know I was tired until like the fatigue dissipated, and I was like, whoa, like this is what it's supposed to be. This is nifty, you know. So the older I'm getting, the deeper I'm going down this rabbit hole, the more intuitive I'm getting about how my body is truly feeling, the easier is for me to alter whatever is off and then come back to a more baseline state. And it's a monumental change of how you can manipulate the body and make it feel. But that's the strategy that worked for me. It's different for every single person based on all the other inputs that they have. There's just so much crap. Like, you know, you had so much other stuff that's going on. So you'll have a whole different approach compared to me. But as long as you're focusing on that a little bit, like you end up figuring yourself out relatively quickly, and things do change significantly when you find the right stuff.
Stuart helped me a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's such a great dude. He sees like the big picture so fast. I mean, just a 40-minute call with him, and I was like, whoa, wait, you only want these 2 supplements? Seriously? I was like, what? Like, I went to general naturopaths, and I had like, they wanted me to do another $1,500 worth of like blood tests and like another $200 worth of supplements. Tried the supplements first, felt good for like a week, and then everything went back to baseline. But then Stu has literally just reset it for like close to 6 months. And then I stacked the stuff that I did, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, like it was nuts.
Yeah, he helped me a lot too. Also went the keto route too. So it really helped a lot.
Love it.
All this stuff is so fascinating. I have so many thoughts going into my mind, but it just might mean we have to do a second interview at some point.
That's totally fine.
Part 2.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this, and as we come towards a closing, I didn't tell you I was going to ask you this, but I'm going to ask you this because I know you'll have an answer. If you had one takeaway message to give to anybody watching, whether it's a physio, a trainer, just anybody watching, what's your takeaway message?
My takeaway message, honestly, like play with words and listen to people. That's the biggest thing that I've been experimenting with quite a lot. Um, because many of the times we miscommunicate the stuff that we're trying to say that
Uh,
creates gap in the relationship from practitioner to client.
yep.
So you hear of all of these negative things when people go to like traditional physical therapy and all of that type of stuff. And it's not that traditional physical therapy is wrong. It's just that many of the times they're just miscommunicating certain things. Even traditional doctors and stuff like that, when you go in for an X-ray and MRI, they're like, oh yeah, like your hip is degenerated. You need a hip surgery. Like just do that. Many of the, doctors are saying that immediately, and then all of a sudden the patient has a neurotag. My hip is fucked up. Everything I do is going to hurt until I get the surgery, and that's the main thing. But I'm like, no. Sometimes, yes, you need a surgery. There's nothing wrong with your surgery if your hip you truly need one. But many of the times, just saying that, you know what, you might need surgery 25 years later, or let's try push that back as far as you can. But let's teach you or go to this person so that they can teach you what the hip is supposed to do. Even if you have these issues, many of the times if you learn how to move out of it, their pain might dissipate. That alter in language changes so much. And we
Yeah,
can
that's a
only
good
use
point.
that based on if you're truly listening to your client or patient. And that is the biggest takeaway, is that we make enemies. Like we make so much disconnect because one, we actually don't even know what the hell they're doing. So we assume everything. Assumption is the mother of all fuck ups. It's like we think
Yeah,
that
totally.
you go
Yeah.
to a traditional doctor, this is the route they're going to take. No, which doctor are you going to? Like, there's so many great traditional doctors out there that know how to word things, that actually give a crap about their patients and truly give them a true right diagnosis, or refer
Yeah.
them out to the exact right person that they need because they've spent the time to network and stuff and know words. Whereas other people, they just think this is their job, this is how I get paid, just do that, and that's it. So that's the difference in communication. So for the people who are listening, I definitely recommend play with words, like truly find the right words that resonate with each client individually, because
Yeah.
we're all
Yeah.
human
True.
beings. We all have different personalities, and the better you get at figuring the person out within 10 or 15 minutes, you can word things in the right way that's going to resonate with them so that they won't feel so broken. And there is always hope. So that will probably
That's
be
a
the
big
message.
deal, man.
Word
I
thing,
love that. That's one
yeah,
of the best takeaways I've ever heard.
appreciate it.
That's really,
Yeah.
really good. It could go down another path here. I won't, but just mentioning that I was talking with a doctor recently who works for a big conglomerate, and she's so frustrated because she says, I'm not allowed to listen to people. I don't have time. I have to meet minimum numbers of people through every day. So I spend about 6 minutes with each person. But
Mm-hmm.
really, I need a half an hour. And I can't even, or more. And,
And in my opinion, that's still an excuse. There's a lot that you can do within the 6 minutes as well.
oh,
And
sure.
that's altering our personal perception of how much time
Yeah.
that we have with each client. And that is the main thing that I've challenged everybody to play around with, is like,
Mhm.
hey, even if the system is flawed, there is still something that you personally can do to change the
Yeah.
system a little bit. And over time, that's how the system actually changes.
And
So
that's the
play
way it needs to
around.
be. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting. She's
Yeah,
one of those people who's going to take those 6 minutes and do the best she can, and
I
she's
love it.
got to get going. But I think that I really love this takeaway because I think it's really relevant in everything, all businesses, all life, all
Mhm.
communication.
Yeah.
As a trainer, as a physio, as a doctor, as a whoever,
Yeah.
understanding is things can get filtered weird, especially when it's in writing and you can't hear the tone of a voice in a text or an email or
Yep.
something.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
understanding can really help to bridge a lot of gaps and help
Mm-hmm.
people.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely. All
awesome,
we need
man.
to do is give a shit and give people hope.
Yeah.
That's 80% of our job will be done
Well,
if we do that.
you're one of those people, man. You can tell by the success of your business, the way your postings and how you take all this seriously. And I'm really, really glad. I'm really glad I met you. You inspire me a lot. You know this.
Me
So
too, man. You're so awesome.
when I come out next year in March, because it'll be me. I'm not sending the team. I'll probably it's Stuart and me are going to be there actually.
Love
Stuart,
it. Yeah. Awesome.
the nutrition side of
Neuromotor training.
people with movement disorders. Yeah, he's
I
been doing
love
it
it.
lately. Stewie and I will be there, and then I would love to come early or stay late and grab a couple sessions with you, dude.
Hell yeah, dude. We'll
Yeah.
take you through some stuff.
Thank you. Yeah.
Awesome, man.
Well, cool. So, what's your website name?
It's just movementreborn.com.
I thought so. I just want to make sure I'll put a link on the screen. The audio of this goes up on SoundCloud and iTunes. So for those listening, go to movementreborn.com. And then do you have, where's the course, the online stuff, where's it going to be at? Is that going to be accessible from movementreborn.com?
Yeah, all the courses. Yeah. So my online program, Movement Unwound, that will definitely have another page on there.
All right, cool.
Yeah, when I launch it will be up there.
All right. Well, it's been a real pleasure. I don't want to stop talking, but if we don't stop, then this just means it's time for another interview at some point.
All right, brother.
Part 2 at some point. Thanks, Andy.
Thank you, Carl.
Really appreciate it. And for those who are watching and listening, I really hope you enjoyed this. Every time I talk with Andy, I learn a lot. You already hit a couple of I didn't know that's for me today, or I never thought of kind of stuff. And that stuff just makes me so excited. So thanks for listening. Thank you, Andy.
Thank you, brother.
Have a fantastic day.
All right, man. Love you, bro. Take it easy.
You're the best, my friend.